All right, cool. I have started recording. So, welcome everybody back to Web Dev 101. Let me fire up my presentation here. We've got a couple new people with us tonight, so we'll introduce everybody to our new folks. And I'll do my best to keep this to 9 o'clock. We got started a little bit late, but I'll do my best. And then let's see, share screen on this guy. All right, can you see it okay?
Yep.
All right, cool. Cool. So, welcome everybody back. We've got a few new people tonight. So I'm going to start by introducing them. We've got Cody Ely and we've got Bailey Norris. So Cody, kind of what we did last week was just introduce yourself and what your general background is and why you're here.
I'm Cody Ely. I live in East Peoria. I'm a welder right now. My general background is basically just tinkering with stuff on my own. I have a Raspberry Pi. I half built a computer. I've messed around with Linux a little bit. I've programmed very little. And so I'm pretty much still in the beginner stage as far as everything goes.
Awesome. Yeah, you've done. I've heard a lot about Raspberry Pi, but I haven't tinkered with it. For those that don't know, that's just it's like a miniature computer that you can do all kinds of stuff with. Like, isn't there like robotics programming and all kinds of crazy stuff?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very useful.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm sure Cody knows more about that than I do. Maybe I'll take a chance to explore it one day, but cool. So Cody, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And then Bailey, go ahead and introduce yourself, general background, and why you're here.
Okay. So I live in Pekin. I work at a church and actually with Missy. I have a little bit of knowledge in computers. So I've like experimented with like blogging sites and that sort of thing, coding the pre-made stuff, but not so much starting from scratch and just looking to pick up a few new skills.
Awesome. Yeah, Bailey is our children's minister at the church that I went to since I was like 15. So inherited all of the children that I used to interact with. I don't know. Good to have you. So just so you guys know, I mentioned this last time. This class is going to be geared toward aspiring web developers. I don't have a slide for this in this, but it's geared toward people that want to learn to code, specifically the front end. Eventually, we'll get into the back end and everything that entails. But to start with, we're going to be doing HTML, CSS, down the road JavaScript. This is not a make a simple blog website. This is going to be like how to get a job coding in the field. So hopefully that lines up with your goals at least somewhat. If you don't go full-time into web development, which I'm sure maybe even most of you won't, but if this can help you get a raise at work or just teach you something cool that you want to do and make a couple $100 on the side every month, that'll be helpful however you want to employ it. So cool. So first we're going to start with the homework. I want someone to tell me that was here last week what the purpose of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is. So I'm going to pick on, let's go Dylan. Tell me what HTML is.
HTML is basically like paragraph of the website, like the header, the footing, the main body, etc.
Yep. So the contents of your website, yes. So the content and the structure. Sylvia, can you tell me what CSS is?
It's presented on the screen, like how it's designed.
Yep. So CSS is your presentation layer, everything that you, everything about the visuals of the site, the colors, the font sizes, the width and height and size and thickness of fonts and things like that. So, that's the presentation layer. And then let's see.
Isn't JavaScript like the way you interact with the site?
Yes, it sure is. Thank you, Josh. Yes, JavaScript is, like you just said, the interaction / behavior of your site. It's like the programming parts. So anytime you interact with the menu or anytime you submit information for something called Ajax, that's going to be JavaScript. So you've got your structured content, you've got your presentation, and then you've got your interaction. Before we go any further, I'm getting just a little bit of feedback. So if you guys are not actively speaking, if you could go ahead and mute yourselves, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so tonight, as you probably saw on my first slide, we're going to be covering HTML and CSS. We also mentioned JavaScript last week, and you might be wondering why we're not getting into that right now. And really the reason for that is for your first website, it's not really necessary. It's something that you're definitely going to want to attain if you want to do anything cool, or if you want to get a job doing this, you're definitely going to need JavaScript. But I want to start from the very basics. I don't want to overcomplicate stuff. So we're going to start with the very basics, the meat and potatoes, and then we'll get into the icing of JavaScript later on once you guys have a good grip on it. And I feel confident in doing that because I actually had built my first 2 websites that I built. I didn't use any JavaScript on. I actually had it in my contract with the guy that I did work with. I'm like, client has no expectations of client-side scripting. And I still got paid for it, so that was cool. So we'll start with just HTML and CSS. Also because it's an entirely different discipline and mental model. Sorry, I'm hearing something clank around upstairs. And then, yeah, so you have enough to worry about right now. We'll get there. Hold on, guys, pardon me for 1 second. I think my dog's knocking some bowls around. It's driving me crazy. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Had my kid was messing with some pots and pans or something. All right, so here's our agenda for tonight. We're gonna go talk about HTML and what it looks like, and we're just gonna kind of get intimate with the syntax of it, and I'll explain what syntax means here in a second. And then we'll take a detour real quick before we get to CSS. We'll talk about the history of web browsers. So like Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, stuff like that. And then we'll talk about CSS and its syntax and implementation. And then I'll do a really quick demo on my screen, and then we're all going to go out and we're going to get text editors, and we're going to write our first lines of code. So yay for you in advance. So let's start with HTML. So HTML, as was that Dylan described for us, is the content and structure of your website. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And it is a way to define the information that is displayed on your web page and how that information is organized hierarchically. So when you go to a website, you don't actually see this in your browser. You don't really see this as a user, but this is something that every web developer is going to be very familiar with. This is what the general structure of your HTML document is going to look like on every website. So you can write this down if you want to. It's just something to think about, really. You don't need to memorize this, I guess, right now. But so every web page is served as HTML, and up at the top, the very first thing that you do, and again, you don't have to write this part down if you don't want. I'm just kind of talking about it. The very first thing is called your doc type declaration, and what that is HTML has been developing since I want to say the 90s. Anyway, sometime in the 90s. And over time, HTML has gotten bigger and better, and it's decided on different rules and standards that it should adhere by. And your doc type declaration is basically just saying, hey, web browser, I am writing my web page in this version of HTML. So it's kind of a flag to your web browser that tells it what standards you intend to code by. So immediately after that, you have your what's called your HTML tag. So if you look at the green outline there, thanks to Google Images, I didn't make these images, you've got your HTML tag. And you're gonna get pretty familiar with these little alligator mouths on the left and right. They're the less than, greater than brackets on the left and right. And whenever you see something that has, the less than sign, tag name, and then the greater than sign. Sorry, we don't talk about these too much. That is called your opening tag. So your opening tag is you're saying, hey, HTML document, this is where I'm going to start something. So you can kind of see already that you can do what's called nesting, which is you put things inside one another. Whenever you talk about nesting, that's if you think of kind of like those Russian stacking dolls where you're putting one doll inside the other. That's kind of what we're doing here. You have your HTML tag inside which you nest the head tag and the body tag. And then after all that nesting stuff is done, then you close your HTML tag. So you can see the opening tag is up at the top here, where it says arrow, HTML, arrow, and then it does all this other stuff, and then it's got the arrow / HTML arrow, and that slash means I am closing the corresponding tag. So that kind of visual that you see there, that's called a tag, an HTML tag. Excuse me. So immediately after you have your opening HTML tag, you have what is called your document head. This is your HTML head. And your head is where you're going to put things like imports or information about your website. So if you ever go to Google and you search for something, so say I search for, I go to Google and I search for Facebook. And when I when I look for Facebook, then you know how you go to Google and you see like there's the big blue link that has the name of the website, and then you have a paragraph or so of text that talks about the website. Where that information comes from is your HTML head. So the developer writes that, and they say the title of this page is facebook.com, and the description of that page is, a place to meet your friends and talk about things or whatever. So that all goes up in your head. Don't confuse this with the header of a page. A header is something different. A header would be like, where you have your logo and your company title and your navigation and stuff. Like that's a very visual thing. That's your header. That's something different. The head is just where you put kind of meta information about your site, the title, the description, things that you're linking out to, etc. And then your body is the most important thing. Your body is where you're going to put all of your content. So that's everything that the user sees. So that'll be your images, that'll be your videos, that'll be your audio files, that'll be your text, whatever. It's all of the HTML that we are going to write. So I've got another helpful graphic here. If this isn't quite clicking, we've got Peter Griffin's going to show us. You've got your HTML, which is your entire document, opens at the top of the head, closes at the bottom of his feet. Your title, you can see, I mentioned a title and a description goes inside the head. And that whole head holds all that information. And then your body is your page content. So maybe you'd have like, arms and legs and belt, shoes, all that goes inside the body. Does anybody have any questions so far or want me to revisit something?
I'm good.
I got it.
Cool. Bailey, how you doing?
Good.
All right. Do speak up, guys, if you want me to slow down. I don't want to rush ahead without you capturing the earlier stuff. All right. So we're going to talk for a second about the syntax of HTML. So syntax just means, like, have you ever gone and typed something on like a scientific calculator and it says, unexpected syntax error or whatever? What the heck does that mean? Syntax is just the format in which you're supposed to write things. So this is what HTML is understood to look like. When you write HTML, it's going to have this general look. You've got your opening tag or your start tag, I guess they call it here. And you've got your closing tag or your end tag. So again, you can see, I can't get my mouse up on the screen for some reason, but the left kind of red area is your opening tag. And the right one with the slash that mirrors the left, but it doesn't have stuff like class equals foo. The right side is going to be your closing tag. So your tag, this one, for example, is a paragraph tag. So they have, this is a paragraph in there, but you could write something like, welcome to my website, blah, 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 and put all your content there. And that is inside your paragraph tag, which again goes inside the body. Then as we kind of work inward, you see inside of that red section, we have two pink things where it says class equals foo. The thing before the equal sign is called your attribute. So you can give your tags certain properties. You can do different things with them. Class is a very familiar one. I'll go into what that means later once we get into CSS, but just know that the way that looks, the class equals, that's so that the part that says class is your attribute name. And then when you set it equal to something, you're saying that's the value. So for example, if I was writing an HTML document about myself, I'd have P name equals Derek. So that's the attribute about myself is the name, but the value that I'm assigning to that is Derek. Or maybe it would be something like P age equals 30. So an attribute is just a certain characteristic about that particular tag. Cool? All right.
A question
Yes, ma'am.
for like the example you used, name equals Derek or name equals Sylvia. So does that have to be in the quotes like foo is?
Yes, it sure does.
Okay.
That's part of the syntax of HTML is whatever value you are passing to that attribute has to be wrapped in quotes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Good question. All right. So before we get into CSS, I feel like I need to talk about why we even got to CSS in the first place. And kind of the way I want you to think about this is I mentioned that you can pass HTML certain properties, and you can say, for example, name equals Derek, age equals 30. And somebody might think, well, why do we even need CSS? Why couldn't we just say, so if I had a shirts tag and I said shirt color equals red or shirt size equals XL, or like, why do we even need CSS? Why couldn't all this be defined inside of HTML? And you're absolutely right. That's what they used to do. So HTML used to have all these different, what's now referred to as presentational markup styles. And they did things like that. So they said font equals such and such, or color equals this, or border width equals that. And that was enough for people in the beginning. But we had, you would write HTML and then people would view them inside of their web browser. So back before we had Chrome, Firefox, Edge, all these cool things we have nowadays, we had something that they referred to as the browser wars. And essentially that was, the internet was a new medium and it was taking off, and the browser vendors, or the people that were creating the browsers, wanted to have people use their browser and gain more, brand exposure and stuff like that, so that they could have more money, I'm assuming. And what they did is they designed with what were called tables. So we still use tables nowadays in HTML, but they used it a very different way back then. So if I go and I look at this website, this is how websites used to look. And I'm going to look at the code for a second. Oops. Let me try to make this big enough for you guys to see it. But what they did was they designed everything in HTML tables. So you can see they have, here's our tags, here's our attributes and the values, and they had stuff like border color, width, height, and they would pass those all in as values. But it was really messy. So check out what happens here. If I'm a developer and I'm writing this website, look at all this garbage that I have to wade through to get into stuff. So all I want to do is I want to have a space there. before I get to my content, and then I want to show my image. But to do that, I have to have this table tag, and then I have to undo all of the stuff that the browser has by default. So border equals 0, cell padding equals 0. Then I need to go into my table body. Then I need to go into my table row. Then I need to have my table. But and you're kind of out of luck. You're kind of limited to what HTML afforded you. And what was difficult too is you had everything kind of lumped together. So you had the structure of your document, and you had the contents of your document, but then you also had the styling of your document. So you had all this stuff, and it was just really confusing when you're looking at when you're trying to build this web page. You know, it's inflexible, and you can't do everything that you want to, and then your code is just a mess. You're like, you know, trying to figure out where stuff goes. Okay, here's this image. You know, I'm like 20 tags nested deep before I even get to my first thing. So it's just kind of a pain in the butt. And we stepped into this kind of dislike of presentational markup, which is the things I was just showing you, the tables, and whoops, let me make that bigger, sorry. With the tables and the color tags and the font tags versus what's called semantic markup, which is descriptive of the content that is within it. So paragraph or header or something of that nature tells you a lot more about the content that you're reading, like the nature of the content versus how it looks. So I will show you this link here. So they had, originally they had, you know, let me find one. Oh, shoot. Okay. So like italics, bolding text versus something like somebody's address or the body describing the, yeah, so here's some ugly ones. To center your text, you would wrap it with a tag called center. Or to change your font, you would wrap it with something called font. So we stepped away from the idea of presentational markup, and we wanted something better whose job it was specifically to handle how a page looks. And we stepped towards semantic markup, which describes the contents of our website. So they introduced CSS, which is cascading style sheets, so that we can work toward this programming paradigm of what we call separation of concerns, which basically just means I want HTML to do one job, and I want CSS to do a wholly separate job, and the two should not cross over. They should each have their own purposes. And what happened was, on this next slide, you can see they had the browser wars. So here's back in 94, we had Netscape Navigator that was taken off, and it was really popular, but then Internet Explorer started doing some cool things. That's the blue line here. And so Netscape went down in popularity. That's that yellow line. And Microsoft started getting really popular. And you can see that at its heyday, they had like upwards of 95% of web traffic. And that was great for them for the time, but it caused a problem. So they continued to innovate. They were really cool. But as the CSS specification was developing, they didn't really have to care about what the spec was because they had all web traffic. They could do whatever they wanted to. So now, only recently have we had to almost not think about this, but it introduced this kind of the part that everyone hates about web development, which is called cross-browser compatibility, which is developing against the specification of CSS, but then you have to go back and write some extra code so that Microsoft browsers can view it. Hey, Justin.
Sorry, that was supposed to be a group chat thing.
No, that's good. So we have this cross-browser compatibility issue where instead of writing one code base, it's a pain in the butt because you got to write against the spec, and you can see on this other slide I was just on, Firefox started to gain popularity because they were developing against the spec, and then they could do cool things that Microsoft couldn't, and things that would developers would build these pages in Firefox because they could understand what the thing was going to look like, and then it would just totally break in Microsoft browsers. Now take us to present day. Whoops. Now we have Chrome by Google, really ramping up. So the blue line is Chrome, that's going way up, and you can see the purple line, Internet Explorer by Microsoft, is going way down. And they have been wrestling with this headache for the past however many years. If you get into the field for any amount of time at all, you're going to find out that front-end developers don't like Internet Explorer because they will build a perfectly working product and it'll look great, it'll be beautiful, and it'll work in every browser until they open up Internet Explorer. And it's just kind of this moment of, oh crap, okay, yeah, I have to do this cross-browser compatibility nonsense. So these companies that have both innovated and stayed in line with the spec have gained traction, and Microsoft has lost a lot of traction. So, so then Microsoft was put into kind of a weird position where they had to compete for traffic. So that brings us to CSS, now that we know a little bit of history behind it. And again, CSS is cascading style sheets. That is your presentation layer. That is the thing that makes your websites beautiful. That's your colors, your fonts, blah, 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 your animations, etc. And here is what, well, this isn't what CSS looks like. This is actually what links out to a CSS file, which is called your style sheet. And your style sheet is what contains all of your CSS. But basically, you've got your HTML web page, and you need to tell it, okay, since my styles, since my appearances are no longer within the HTML that I'm about to write, you need to tell it where those styles are going to be. So don't get too concerned with the appearance of this. It's just, this is how you tell HTML that CSS is coming and this is where it is. And the syntax of that CSS looks something like this. So this is kind of an artsy-fartsy picture I found, but you can still see what it looks like. So you can see they're using font size extra small. And they're using background, they're changing it to some color. And then the color, which is your text color, they set it to black. And they set their margins here, and they set their padding here. And all the spacing and all of the intricacies of how something looks is all being defined within that CSS. Does anybody have any anything you want me to back up to yet? Or explain in more detail? That was kind of a lot of information in a short amount of time. All right. We'll move forward then. So I'm going to do a quick demo, and I will show you how a very basic web page looks like. And then you will write some code with me. So don't worry too much about this right now. I'm just going to demo really quick. I just want you to kind of see what it looks like. You don't have to follow along, but close some of this stuff. And I'm going to make something. There's awesome site. And remember, we talked about last week, a website is just files on somebody's computer. So I'm making those files right now. So let me get my text editor. We'll get you guys one of these here in a bit. Ignore this. This is all my stuff that I'm working on today at work.
Is that the Atom text editor?
Yes, it sure is. And that's what I'm going to be helping you guys get here shortly. All right, so let's see. Desktop, very awesome site. Then, no, I don't need this crap right now. I need my file. Okay, so I'm going to write some HTML, just kind of generally visually follow along. You don't have to understand what's going on yet, but just stick with me. So I'm going to write my doc type, and then I'm going to have my HTML, and then I'll close my HTML tag. I'll have my head, and I will close my head. I'll write the title in here. And then down here, I'll put my body, closing body, and then I would say, I don't know.
Hello world. Do it.
No, I'm not.
Sorry.
Say, hey, suckers. That's going to be my H1 tag. I'll explain what this is here in a second. This is super awesome. And then I'm going to go get a picture of a dog from Google. This is a pretty cool dog. Here's my dog. And I'm going to drop my dog. It'll be dog.jpg. It's going in my folder. Here's awesome site. Here we go. And then we'll say image source equals /dog.jpg. All right. And then you guys are awesome. And then description. This is site. What else? Oh, we also want to do style sheet. No, not like that. That's not right. I honestly always forget how to do this. 1 second. It's like link. Yeah, there you go. Link. And we'll say styles as CSS. And I'll make another file, styles as CSS. Okay, so that's enough for now. And I'm just going to show you how this works. So I have this file called index.html, which means nothing to you right now, but essentially it means this is the default page in this folder, I guess is the way to say it. So if I double click it, boom, there's my first website. And all it is a folder with some stuff in it. And I gave it a style sheet and I gave it some tags. I haven't written any styles yet, but I have linked out to them. But really all this says is give me a header tag. So if you see any, is this text big enough for you guys, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So this H1, this is called a header tag, and there's 6 different header tags. It just goes H1, H2, H3, all the way through H6. And all that is H1 is the most important, probably the biggest text on your page. H6 is like, I don't know. Here's an example. If you think about the Bible, your H1 would be Holy Bible, and then your H2 would be your books, and then your H3 would be your chapters, and then the H4 would be your verses or whatever. So it's like in descending order of importance, it goes H1 through H6. And then I've got my paragraph tag, and you can see that my website is already kind of starting to visually prioritize these things, where H1, my header, is bigger, and my paragraph tag, which is just content, is smaller. And then I have this IMG, which means image. And then here's my attribute and my value, which says the source of this image is this dog.jpg. And then this is what's called a self-closing tag. So like, there's nothing really to put, like, if this had a corresponding closing tag, like what would you put here? Like dog, and that would be text. So like if there's a tag that doesn't have something that would go inside of it, this is how it's written. So usually it's open tag, close tag with a slash, but then if it's a self-closing tag, you do your opening and then you just put the slash right before you. That's what that looks like. And then up here in my head, we talked about the title, and I already screwed this up. Hold on. Meta description. I already forgot how to do this because it showed up. It's not supposed to show up on the web page, but just a second. Actually, hold on. Let me just do this. So they say, so they say content equals, this is the stuff. But here's another self-closing tag, I guess. This probably should be too. So now, okay, so that goes away. And the title, what's cool, the other job that title has is it also becomes your page title up here. Is that zooming in for you guys? But I don't know if you can see it, but right up back here, let me do this. I got a tool I can zoom in with. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So like, if I look really close up here at my page title, there it is. You guys are awesome. So there's my page title, and that's how that gets into your browser. Because it's just your title tag inside of your head. Okay.
Question real quick.
Yes.
Okay, so all this stuff that you did, you made a website or a web page, but like right now, if we wanted to, is there a web address that we could put in and get to the site that you just made?
That's a really great question. Very good question. So the answer is no right now. And the reason is this is just a file sitting on my computer.
Okay.
And while the internet is technically just files sitting on other people's computers, it would probably be pretty bad if I didn't explicitly give you access to that. And
I get it, because then we'd be accessing everybody's files.
yes.
So you have to give it permission or something to have an address that people can type in.
Correct. And
Okay.
so a server would be something that would serve up that information, and that's just a computer. But
Okay.
a
Thank you.
server, yeah, no problem. So I just want to expand on that just a little bit. The way that I would get this out to you guys if you wanted to visit this in your own site is I would have to expose this to the internet using a piece of software called a web server, which we won't go into right now, but it's a piece of software that's explicitly made to deliver that to you. And I would also have to expose my computer to the web so that other people could get into it. So it's kind of a two-step thing. So we won't put anything out onto the internet at large until we're ready for that. We're just going to be doing it on our computers. But then, we'll get into that later. Okay. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're already at 8:56. The last thing that we're going to do for the day is probably also the lengthiest. I wanted to have you guys do a very small portion of what I just did. But maybe we should save that for next time. I'm thinking. You guys tell me, what should we do? I'm trying to keep
Make a homework assignment, unless you have something else.
So yes, I could, but I'm scared to do that because when I was learning like iOS development, I would go and watch video tutorials of people doing these things. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And then I'd sit down in front of my computer and be like, I don't know what that to do. So I really feel like this first step is something that we should do together, but I don't want to take everybody's night if you have other things to do or you just want to go home and sleep.
Hey Derek, how long do you think it would take? 15, 20, 30 minutes?
Maybe 30 minutes. What I can do is we can kind of take each small step and just kind of see where we are. I feel like we're probably going to need to take a mental break after some of these steps anyway. Do you want to?
What if maybe you just walked us through a couple of lines rather than the whole thing?
Yep. Well, that's all we were going to do anyway, was a couple lines.
Okay.
So let's do this. Let me just see how long this takes, and then we can kind of gauge from there.
Okay.
What I want you guys to do is go to, let me make sure I have the right web address. Yes. So you're going to go to this website. Let me paste it in our group chat here.
Oh, get Messenger open there.
All right. So the link that I'm sending to you guys is something that I use every day called Atom. And it is a special type of program called a text editor. And what I want you to do is download and install that. And this is this that I just used. It's basically just a thing that helps you write. If you've already got a text editor that you prefer, like I'm certain Justin does, you probably do VS Code or something, you can stick with that, but I'm going to be doing stuff in Atom.
Well, there you go. You just type the HTTPS.
Yeah. Atom.io.
Okay, so
I will tell you guys, if someone decides to pick this up and make a career out of it, and it feels like going to college courses, I looked around at some colleges and they still use something called Dreamweaver, which is made by Adobe.
Mhm.
Professionals in my
Yeah.
field
Wait,
don't
yeah.
use Dreamweaver anymore. There's like 200 level courses in college that use Dreamweaver, and you just don't do that. Like if you tell people
Yes, let's click there and there should be an option to download right there.
use something like this,
Without save, because we'll be using that again. Probably. And eventually save soon
go
too.
ahead and do that. I'm gonna go on mute and you guys can hear me. I'm going to take this up until probably 9:10 before I dismiss so that we get a full hour. And then we'll just start early.
What do you say, 9:15? Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
We're already in it.
What was that? I'm sorry.
So I hit download and I'm just trying to
Is that it?
figure out.
Right. Oh, yeah, click on that.
It's not
Open
good.
the setup log. Oh, has statement.
How's everybody else doing?
Mine says installation has failed.
Oh, no. Missy, would you be comfortable sharing your screen and maybe we could work through it?
I don't know how to share my screen.
I think I have to give you the ability.
Oh,
Sorry.
I know alt. And this is different. And then that one, print screen, it like copies it.
Let's see.
And whenever you would share it to.
I gotta find. I don't have Gary here to tell me how to use Zoom.
It says to check the setup log for more information. Does that sound right? Or contact the author?
No, I'm not sure what's going on there. Let me give me 1 second. I'm trying to like so I can have somebody else share. There we go. Stop sharing. Big red button. And then
He's gonna give you the ability to share your screen.
Okay, but all my stuff just left. Oh, are you doing that?
yeah, well, I made the Zoom sharing thing go away. So let's see. How can I? Hold on. I'm trying to figure out. Allow record. Can I not make you guys present?
For the first class, but you the one that was sharing the screen. And you gave him the ability to write something.
I don't know how to let you guys present. This is good. Does anybody have, can you look at your Zoom app and tell me if there's a share button?
I say mine has a share button. She should be able to just hit share.
Okay. Do you have a share button on your screen, Missy?
Yeah, that's in the application.
Not at the moment. Something's happened and I am.
Okay.
Share, where's share? On the bottom.
Is anybody else having the same problems that would be willing to screen share? Oh, good job, Missy. Got it. Okay, so you've got Adam,
Oh, thanks.
and then is there download? Installation has failed. Error installing application checkup setup. Okay, I guess Justin, can you be of assistance, Mr. Windows?
Yeah, hold on a second. All right, installation fail setup. All right, can you close? Oh, are you? Oh boy, are you running on a 64-bit machine? Do you know?
A what?
Are you running on 64-bit Windows? Do you know that?
How new is your computer, Missy?
I have no idea.
It's probably
It's-
it's Windows 10, so it's probably 64-bit.
Okay, cool. Can you go back to where you downloaded the file at?
Just the website.
Yeah, like could you actually like download the exe to your computer rather than just like running it?
Yeah, so do download. There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah, go ahead and click on that. And then see where don't hit run, hit save with the arrow. Okay, that's fine. And then click on the view downloads. And then give that a second. And then can you right click on that? Oh.
No.
Okay. Oh, see where it says open folder? Click on that.
Right up in the top right there, the blue text. There you go, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think I know what the issue is because I've had this problem before. All right, and then see where it says Atom Setup x64. Right click on either one of those is fine, and then go to Properties at the bottom. Click on the unblock at the bottom.
Right in the corner there.
Yep, and then hit OK. And then run that one. See if it works.
So just double click on that same thing that you right clicked a minute ago.
Yeah.
Give it just 1 second.
Yeah. You might have to close the other thing. There it goes. Oh, it did the same thing. See both those X's. Can you close out of those?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, there it goes. Right.
Yeah, you'll still want to close probably those other ones though. Yeah, close that. And the other one too. Well, yeah, all the things. Okay.
All the errors. All right, so that's installing.
Neat.
Did everybody else get Atom on their computers?
No.
No, he was too busy
Except
doing
for
that.
I have it on my computer.
No, I'm going to use Visual Code because that's me.
Justin's a Microsoft elitist, and so are also most people in my group.
Yes, I am.
Had this
I tried to get VS Code, but it wouldn't work on mine.
Boo.
I just haven't found anything that.
There's just so many good extensions. I love
Yeah, but Adam's just as good. It feels like everybody I know has leapfrogged Atom entirely and gone straight to VS Code. And they're like, "This is amazing! It does everything." I'm like, "Dude, I've been doing that for the last 2 years."
Well, I liked Sublime, but then better things came out. And then
Yeah.
wow.
Well, that's what everybody did. Is they went from Sublime to
How long does this
Code,
take?
and of course they're going to.
I mean,
But anyway, whatever.
Well, Microsoft bought GitHub, so what's going to happen to Atom?
Yeah. So that was a big question on a lot of people's mind. They have officially stated on the record that they're going to continue to develop both platforms. And yeah, exactly. Until they don't.
Yeah, until they don't.
Yeah.
They'll probably not release any major releases in that.
I don't know.
They're going to prioritize VS Code until Atom sucks so bad that no one cares anymore.
Yeah,
Hey,
probably.
Derek, can I see that code again?
Yeah, sure, man. Josh is working ahead of us.
There. I want this one.
All right.
I just feel I'd understand it better if I wrote it down.
Yeah, for sure, man. Here, let me sorry, I'm still kind of fiddling around on my screen here. And yeah, I'm gonna send out Would it help if I sent this file out to you guys too to kind of look at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll send out that file. I'll send out a picture of the file because the file is just going to be black and white. But I'll send that out and my slides and the recording as well. I'll post on YouTube like I did last time. Cody, did I give you that recording from the first week?
Yeah, but when I clicked on the link, YouTube said that the video wasn't available anymore.
Did anybody else experience that?
No. Where are we supposed to click?
So I'm just talking about last week. We had
Oh,
I recorded the thing and put it on YouTube, and
To be fair, I didn't try it. So.
maybe not.
yeah, I didn't get a chance.
You should put it. Did you put it in Slack?
I put it in the Zoom, or sorry, the Facebook Messenger group.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm such a Slack user now. Like it's terrible.
Yes. So am I. So am I. So it was posted on Friday, and it's this slow to YouTube link. Let me see if it actually works.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, there it goes.
Oh, yeah, I get an error too, bud.
Really?
Yeah, it's just has like a big warning sign.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to figure that out.
Womp womp. Make sure you don't like.
Well, I did
Well.
it is unlisted.
Yeah, and it's not monetized, right?
Do you have to specifically tell it to me?
I think so. Sometimes YouTube will like we had a problem at work where we put up a YouTube video and they're like boom, just instantly.
Okay. So we're a little past 10 after. I want to respect everybody's time tonight, and it sounds like we're at a good spot to just like take a mental break and think about things that we've talked about. So I'm going to stop recording. But as I said last week, you guys are welcome to stay and talk and ask questions and whatever you need to. I'm happy to revisit these topics. I'm here for you guys. So stay on as long as you like, but that is the end of the recording.
Can you still see us?
Oops, I just stopped video. Wrong button. There we go.